Hey everyone, how's it going? Michelle Venus back again, talking to you guys here. Let's keep going with our project here. In the last video, we did the character's body, and now we're going to do the head separate from the body, because as I told you, I like to do the whole character with the limbs separate. There will be videos of the body we did there in full, with the limbs separated as well, alright? So in that first video, it was the full body. Now we're going to do the head. But then later I'll release other videos with the other limbs separated, okay? Don't forget to like, comment, and share, all right? And let's get to it, because there's a ton of drawing for us to do, okay? Well, here I'm going to make the head. I draw that same circle that we always have to make. I make the lower part like this, more oval shaped to form the jaw, right? The character's jaw. I always draw a line down the middle. Then I draw the guideline for the eyes, the ears, and the line marking the limit of the nose, see? Then I draw a line for the mouth and I start adjusting it. The whole process changes little by little. Always okay. I keep working here. After I finish, I make the drawing more complex, just like I said. It's a drawing where the character is facing forward. So I like to make the first layout as a very symmetrical shape. And then I move on to the second layout. I'm working on the second layout now. Now, as I have previously explained to you, I prefer to start with a very small scale, primarily because of the limitations of my peripheral vision. And then I gradually increase the overall size as it becomes necessary in order to properly lay out all of the other subsequent steps in the process. Here I draw the nose, always staying true to the reference in this case. I always start like this, folks. I first draw the shape of the head. I always begin in the middle, again because of my peripheral vision, since that way I have a better view. So I start with the nose and then I move on to the eyes, okay? You saw that the nose, the height of the nose. It will mark the height of the ears there on the side a bit later on. You'll see when I make the markings when I do the second sketch. Here I'm drawing one eye, and for the other, I use these lines in Photoshop to check if it's at the right angle to see if they're aligned with each other. Here's a tip. The space between one eye and the other it's basically the width of one eye, okay? It's almost as if there were a third eye in the middle. That's the distance we always use. There are these tricks for measuring distance, right? For spacing on the face. Here I'm making one eye slightly more open than the other because of the layout, because of the reference. The reference I'm using is like this. It's a character's face and one of his eyes is slightly more open than the other. Okay, but that doesn't stop me from changing it. I'll change that later at the end. After I finish the eyes, then I move on to the mouth. Remember the space here, the philtrum, the area from the nose to the mouth is about the size of another mouth. That's it, generic measurements. That's what we're talking about, right? So even though it's generic, even if we're copying actually from a photo, having these measurements in mind gives us a lot of confidence. It gives us a certain grounding to do things more accurately with more assertiveness in the character's size and proportions. Here we have the expression lines. It's the same procedure as with the body. On the body, I draw all the muscles showing. And then at the end, I decide which muscle I want to emphasize more and which one I don't. With the face, it's the same thing. I try to draw as many expression lines as possible, marking the cheeks, the facial bone structure. And then I decide which lines I'll soften, which ones I'll tone down, and which ones I'll emphasize, okay? Which ones I'll make more pronounced. As I said, it's a face that's facing forward, so in a way no face is symmetrical, right? Isn't that right, folks? No head is symmetrical. Some people have a very asymmetrical head or face. but here our character is average, right? There's a certain symmetry. So I always try to make one side similar to the other. Then I'll give it a certain, I'm always making adjustments. I always try to do one side first. When I do one side, and then when I go to do the other side, I'm always keeping an eye on the first side to see if they're the same. Here I turn it upside down. When you turn the drawing upside down, it gives you more freedom. It's another trick for you, another skill to help you see the proportions. Here you have, I sometimes separate the eyes a bit, see if they're too big or too small and make some adjustments. It will never be exactly like the first shape. The first shape is just a guideline, okay? It's just a guide so you know roughly where to place each part of the face. And then you keep adjusting little by little like I'm doing here, okay? I try to make it as symmetrical as possible, freehand like this, so that later I can duplicate the drawing and do that mirroring we used to make it as symmetrical as possible, okay? Always respecting the reference model we're using as well. Since this character will have a beard, maybe I wouldn't even need to get the face so precise and all, but I like to do everything just right. I like to see everything clearly, okay? Under the beard, the hair, the clothes. For me, anatomy is very important because by having perfect anatomy, I have a better sense of what I want to add later, you know? In this case here, it would be the beard and the hair. See the measurement of the nose there. In the reference I'm using, the nose goes a little past the size of the ear. Normally we would make the ear bigger, the size that goes from the eyebrow to the end of the nose. There up to the tip of the nose. But in the reference, it's not like that, so I'm going to leave it more or less this way. Then I draw the hairline, always paying attention. See, it's not going to, I'm not just following, I already went past the shape there because I saw it was necessary, so I go ahead, okay? The shape is just the first layout, the first sketch is just a guide, okay? And then later we adjust things. It's always a guide, the first layout is always a guide. But having this guide done in a really careful way, if we can put it like that, makes the process better. The other layouts, the definitions become easier to do, see? We keep sketching, keep working, keep measuring. Look, see? I duplicated it, mirrored it to see if it's pretty symmetrical, the face. Like I said, it doesn't have to be exactly, there are faces, folks, where I really do duplicate the other side and make it because I'm using Photoshop and the rush demands it. And like I told you, I really use and abuse Photoshop, you know? It's tools. Here I do the eye, the iris always carefully so I don't make the character cross-eyed, strabismic, okay? The character's nose too, from the reference I have here, it's a bit crooked, but I'm actually making it a little more symmetrical, okay? I'm not following it to the letter. The reference, it's not a self-portrait, it's just an inspiration, if we can put it that way, all right? So I like to do it this way. Okay? And then we continue to monitor everything that and carefully record all the measurements. Always making adjustments. Duplicate the line, give it a little touch up. Now we're going to place it on the body, measuring by the head. Always, okay? Because the layout there, since we didn't follow the first sketch, so the head ended up a little bigger. So in a little while, you'll see that I'm going to take the measurement here while drawing the neck, always starting from the beginning of the jawline. Since it's a man, the neck has to be relatively thick. It's not good to make a thin neck. especially because he's a bodybuilder, so the neck has to match the body, right? Taking the head measurements more or less here. Again, measuring more or less. Always trying to achieve perfection. You see, look, I made the head a little bit bigger. Okay? Taking the head measurements now, as always. If it's 7.5, not 7.5, but a little over 7, almost 8, that's still fine here, you see. Here it came out a little less than 8, which is great. For the head's proportions, it's excellent. And that's it. We have to make things as harmonious as possible, okay? That's it, everyone. We've reached the end of another part of our project. Another part here. We just finished the head, and you saw that it has quite a few details. We do the exact same thing we did with the body. We start with an initial layout, then we mark it out and define everything as we go along. There's no secret to it. What you need to learn is that drawing is all about observation. You won't reach perfection or even near perfection, if we can put it that way, if you don't practice and have patience, okay? It's an exercise in observation, so it's always good to use references as well. All right. I hope you enjoyed it. Like, share, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment. Tell me what you think is missing or what isn't, okay? These are the first videos on the channel, so it's all very experimental still. So please post your questions and critiques respectfully, okay? In a kind way. We try to do things here in a way that pleases everyone, or almost everyone, right? It's not always possible to please everyone, but we'll try to answer your questions and help with some of the difficulties you might be having, all right? There will be more videos coming later on. Okay? So don't you worry, okay? But I really need your feedback. So thank you once again for your attention. See you later. Bye. Thanks.